One of the most popular formulas for writing copy is the P.A.S formula, P.A.S. And there are a few reasons why this is particularly effective. The first is that it forces you to communicate the value proposition of your product. So if you don't really understand marketing strategy and you don't know why your product creates value, there's a tendency to talk about it in a way that is irrelevant to the customer. So you might highlight that your product looks really good, and they just don't care. They don't care that it looks good. That's something that they're not concerned with. So when you use the P.A.S formula, you're forced to see where the value is. And value very often is in solving problems. It's not always. Sometimes it's just a benefit, something that's gained. But it's pretty solid if you can position something as solving a problem. Now, the second reason it's particularly effective is because of the psychological principle we were talking about earlier in the course, which is endowment and loss aversion. So people are more interested in not losing what they already have than in gaining something new. So by framing things in terms of filling leaky holes or fixing problems that will prevent losses, then you're more likely to get the attention of the prospect. But I mean, there are nuanced cases. Sometimes building excitement for something new and as something you gain can work. But this is a more reliable formula. So let's start with what it is. The first step is problem. So you're going to discuss what that problem is. So you're losing 50% of your customers due to churn, you're overspending on lead, or your ball bearings are falling apart after 2 years of use. These are the kinds of things that are problems. Second, you agitate the problem. So you exaggerate it. You talk about how it's going to get worse if you do nothing. So basically, you have to act now to prevent the problem from cascading. And then the third thing you do is you talk about the solution. And the solution is essentially talking to sales or signing up for free trial. Or in some cases, maybe for selling a cheap product, it's actually buy the product. And often I like to use a variant of this, a more elongated version. So problem, agitate, solve. But after agitate, what you do is you discredit other solutions. So you say, okay, here's your problem. Your problem's going to get worse. You might think you could do X, but X comes with all these other drawbacks. Y has caused problems for other people. Z doesn't have a guarantee. So these other solutions may be your competitors, but they may just be other ways of solving the problem. Perhaps other product categories, perhaps doing it yourself. So for example, if you sell software, like software as a service, what you could do is discredit custom software. Oh, custom software is going to take you 6 months. It's going to cost you 2 times as much. It's going to take you years to catch up to where we're at because we're working on this every day. So you may as well go with our software and just pay $100 a month, something like that. Okay, and after solve, what we do is we add this other element called prove. So this is where we use case studies, testimonials, recognitions from other companies, badges, reviews, that sort of thing. Okay, so problem, agitate, discredit, solve, prove. And you can do variations of this. It's a modular framework. Okay, so we're going to use an example. And one thing I want to call out here is that it's for a LinkedIn ad. And the LinkedIn ad has some limits in terms of the amount of characters that you can use. So I did a variation for email where I include the discredit. So I position the problem, I agitate the problem, and then what I did in the email version was I go through why going with other solutions are not going to work because they're going to require a lot of time. They require process flow changes. There's all these cumbersome things that are involved. Whereas with this example, I don't use the discredit. I just go problem, agitate, solve, and prove. So I wrote this LinkedIn message ad. Hi, Dekker, you and Dekker Fraser. So in this case, this would be the prospect's company name. You've been selected for a free trial of the Vet Dictation app. Talk to, do you wish to go home early instead of working until 7 p.m. on paperwork? Now, the beginning is actually around the offer, so you can be flexible with this framework. The reason for this has to do with how LinkedIn structures subject lines and puts the call to action at the top. But basically, I'm starting to position the problem here, which is you're working until 7 p.m. on paperwork. Okay, it's a very specific indicator of the problem. And I got that from just talking to veterinarians and being like, oh, well, I'm working until 7 p.m. I'm working until 9 p.m. I don't want to do that. Okay, so that's the problem. And then I'm saying research shows that the leading causes of burnout. Okay, so this is like agitating the problem, that healthcare professionals can actually burn out if they continue to do this, which is a serious problem. And in fact, there are serious mental health issues in this industry by not addressing the problem. And I'm using research, which I guess is a form of corroborating evidence. I'm spending too much time on bureaucratic tests and electronic health records. Now, I go into more details on the research as well later on. So how do you cut the time you spend on those tasks? So basically, I'm teeing up the problem, agitating the problem, and now I'm like, okay, well, what's the answer here? What's the solution? And now I'm using corroborating evidence to tee up the solution, rather than just me talking about my product and how great it is. It's the Journal of Medical Internet Research found that dictation software alone can cut documentation time in half when you account for the length of records and correction time. Okay, so we're dealing with professional audiences. They're going to be skeptical. They're also savvy, right? They've looked at research. They know what kind of medical information there is out there. So that's why I'm using this to prove my point. Medical dictation is now accurate enough to cut your bureaucratic time by 50%. All right, so I'm teeing up the solution. The reason this is possible is that although people can type very quickly, okay, so I'm addressing the objection of I'm a fast typer, I don't need this solution, they can still speak 5 times faster. So speaking is 5 times faster. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm doing a lot of things to prove that dictation's the solution. And at a high level, what I'm doing is I'm selling the category of dictation, because vets are not used to using dictation. The actual brand name, the specific product, matters less in this case because of the stage of awareness. Okay, so how do I prove that dictation's the answer? Well, I'm using evidence. I'm giving specifics about hours, about how much time is reduced. So that's kind of macro level evidence, and then I get into micro evidence, which is a direct quotation from a customer that has used dictation and that has specifically used the product that I'm promoting in this case.